Hello, friends. It's Chapo. Let's okay. First of all, let's formally introduce the show. Hello, it's your Chapo. It's me, Matt, and joining us is special guest, Brother Brendan James.
Hey, everybody.
Brother Brendan James is sitting in today, and I guess what's on everyone's mind. We all watched the lying fake news Clinton News Network debate on the other night.
Holy shit!
And that is actually what was shocking to me. And I want to
I
get
don't know,
talked about
that
the
shouldn't
debate.
be
No, we
shocking
have not.
either, though. Really, I mean, it's CNN.
I know it shouldn't. It shouldn't. I feel like a fucking rube. But when I first of all, I thought that that was going to be the first question of the night.
Right.
To Liz Warren, did he say this?
Yes.
Or getting her on the record on TV. But they buried it. They put it like 40 minutes back after an unbearable opening 30-40 minutes of Wilt Blitzer just asking each one of them like how much they want to go to war.
Yeah.
Or do they as commander in chief, like how will you use the military to kill America's enemies? Like that was basically
if Qasem Soleimani murdered Kitty Dukakis, would you support his execution?
Yeah. Well, because you thought it would be the first question, and I thought that they wouldn't bring it up at all.
Yeah,
and the dialectic answer was that they buried it right in the middle so that enough people probably weren't really watching anymore, but they still asked it. And, of course, we should point out, boosted their story. It was CNN's story.
MJ Lee was the person
Correct.
at CNN. So, I guess, again, I feel like a rube in that this shouldn't shock me, but the way they did it by asking Bernie Sanders, how do you feel about lying? And then he just said, basically, well, I didn't lie. That's not the case.
When did you stop beating your wife?
Yeah, exactly. And then they go directly to Warren and just ask her without blinking an eye, how did you feel when Bernie Sanders said that to you after he flatly denied saying what was in the very thing that's in question?
Yeah.
And then allowed her to essentially, backstop by them, allowed her to not, just say, imply that he's a liar without ever really explicating what was said. He just said we disagreed about that. Well, disagreed about what?
Right.
What was said at this meeting is the very thing in question. And the only two people in that meeting were Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, who are now saying diametrically opposed things about what was said at this supposedly private off-the-record meeting. And the story that started this all is based on 4 anonymous sources, 2 of which heard about it from the principal, Elizabeth Warren. The other 2 heard about it from the other 2.
Right.
So this is just a massive game of telephone. And Elizabeth Warren her campaign issued a statement. They just said, we disagreed on whether a woman could win in 2020.
Yep.
We disagree. I said this, or he said he was concerned that a woman could not beat Trump or not win in 2020. And she said, I disagreed. They have denied, when asked her comment, the Sanders campaign has denied this up and down. Elizabeth Warren has no commented it. And in her statement has just said, let's not talk about this anymore. I want to move on. So what they want is what they've clearly done. And again, we can get into whether they leaked this on purpose or whether this was some unintentional,
bungled
drive-by. Now they have to back it up. Doesn't really matter to me. But they've got it out there, and now they just were oh, let's not talk about it anymore. But also, he should apologize to me for us rat fucking him.
To me, it's less. I don't know if important is the right way to put it, but it's less important or even interesting, and certainly it's not really knowable whether or not she ordered it to go out. Whether
Did
or not
you order the code red?
Yeah, you're goddamn right, I did. Or some very, very, because I mean, honestly, more and more, her people appear to be one of the scummiest staff out there running right now. I'm not trying to let her off the hook, but her people, I could see them going through with this without even checking with her, because they all think they're so clever, and that it would be a brilliant deniable, but also effective smear, et cetera, et cetera. The thing that seems to be agreed upon now is that she has been telling a version of this story for a very long time, and much like her Native American ancestry
Her high
story,
cheekbones, yeah.
Let's
Had
not
to
even,
have high cheekbones for a living, lying every day so I couldn't get in Harvard.
we know what we think about that. But much like that round of incredible, gross, and eventually completely miscalculated snakery, this was something that she definitely had been putting in the water for a while. And whether it came back to bite her in the ass, or whether it came back to, in some people's view, help her, it was like it did originally come from her in a way that I think she knew would, were it ever to get out, be a nice moment for her to parlay it into, well, I don't want to fight with Bernie. Let's forget about exactly how he misogynized.
I just want to say, forget how little growth he did.
Yeah. I just want to say, if you're watching, let's make this a referendum on my candidacy and whether a woman can get elected, which is a lot of what Hillary did. I mean, I do think that the direct comparisons to Warren, to Hillary, were a little off the mark up until now. I think she's much more like an Obama than a Hillary, but now she is, whether she wanted to or not, doing that weaponization of gender thing.
And a lot of people who are trying to like pretend like she didn't want this to happen, or saying like, well, why would she want to have like this debate? Like, it doesn't help her. And I think they're either lying to themselves or to you, because I think her campaign and her very much wants to have this conversation, but on her terms, not about me, about like how I represent that a woman can be president.
And in desperation. I think out of desperation, though. I think if she was cruising, still surging, she probably wouldn't want to do it. But if it's like, this is all we have left, sure, of course, they'll try
It's too close. Her trend lines are down. She has to win Iowa or like strong second to even be in the conversation. And then if she loses New Hampshire right next door to Massachusetts the next week, which she would, and if she doesn't do well in Iowa, it's fucking over for her.
Yeah.
So she's got to do something. So like, for me, it's motive, means, and opportunity are all there for Warren. Everything else seems like second order, trying to outsmart yourself. And especially this idea that, well, because it doesn't look like it worked, it couldn't have been their idea. Yes, the Warren campaign has then made no decisions that end up fucking up for them.
Yeah.
They've never done an own goal. Like, the entire campaign is overthinking things and making idiot decisions that then come back to bite them. But that's what they do, because it's the worst collection of grasping careerists and shitheads around somebody who, frankly, is not a politician and never has been.
Yeah, all of our friend Libby wrote a good analysis tracking with that today in the New Republic, where she just said Warren, not to even big her up, but she's strongest when she's not attempting to be a politician, when she's trying to be a technocrat who wants to, reorder the machinery and get into the weeds and the policy. But every time she's had to be most like a politician before and after the race started, she owns herself.
Every time she has had to stand up and defend something about herself or her campaign, she has blinked and buckled, because she's not confident.
Which makes sense then that her weird snaky staff would then fill the role of, schemer.
And here's the thing, whether this was Elizabeth Warren who put the hit out or her snake ass fucking campaign people who are, again, let's be honest here, like the most plausible explanation for them freelancing on this is that they know that she has no path to victory, and they're securing their place in like the Biden DNC Cosa Nostra by doing the dirt that they need to get done.
Apparently one of her close people that she had on her campaign until like last year is now with Klobuchar. So who knows?
No loyalty particularly.
But again, like whether this was Liz Warren at her direction being like,
it's something we can't know.
This
argument is very enervating.
That's why they like it.
It's what happens. This is why you want to drill a hole in your head, because it always ends up, let's all argue about something that literally can't be known.
Yep.
And until somebody says something on the record, which they're not going to do, let's argue about the heads on the fucking angels on the head of the pin, because that is a great thing that avoids you from having to confront the larger issues. If you can stick on this thing that you can just know you can argue about until the end of the fucking primary and the goddamn sun burns out, because it's not a thing you can know. Who gives a shit?
Exactly. It doesn't matter who gives a shit. And what it shows is like no matter what the provenance of this was, they did this rat fucking, and then what is Elizabeth?
They did the Iggy.
What has Elizabeth Warren shown since then? She doesn't even have the heart to really follow through with it.
She did some fucking like half-assed accusation of him at the debate, and then had a canned fucking speech about how women can do anything.
And a canned moment after the debate. Let's talk about that.
Oh, God.
Which CNN waited another news cycle to just be like, oh, guess what? We had the audio of this.
This was lying around.
I mean,
this audio that was picked up by our
they have mics
cameras
on
and
during
our
the debate?
audio with our microphones. Wow, we found this in the fucking vault.
Just every single thing about the lead up to this and the moment at the debate itself, it just stinks of just like a work from top to bottom. And this whole thing where like Liz Warren then approaches him and then doesn't shake his hand and then goes, I think you called me a liar on national TV. I think you just called me a liar on national TV. And then Bernie just, said, look, let's not get into this now. If you want to have this discussion, like we'll have another place. But, you called me a liar. Sorry. Like, let's not do this now.
Yeah.
Walked away. But then Tom Steyer was just like, I just want to say hi to Bernie. It's
a real treat.
And he goes, yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah.
And he just walks away.
I loved it. I'm glad they leaked that
yeah.
audio because it's exactly what I thought happened, and it was really funny.
No, but it's just like, look, only two people were in that room. They're each saying the other person was lying. And then it's just a question of like, who do you believe? What reason do you have to like assess the credibility of their claims? And I'm sorry, Warren comes out terribly on every single level of that.
Yeah.
And the most tellingly, leaving aside the fact that Bernie Sanders tried to get her to run in 2016 and she didn't do it. The fact that he's been on record from as far back as the 80s saying publicly that he thinks a woman can and should be president, blah, blah, blah. Her whole record of lying and disassembling, whether it's about being Native American, whether it's about, her dad being a janitor or all her kids going to public school.
Her clients and her history.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just all the small little things, whatever. I think it's pretty clear. But like more clear than anything else is that she doesn't really even have the killer instinct or the confidence to really follow through with it and push that knife into the hilt and flatly state her version of what was said and like they call Bernie out directly.
No, the most craven way to possibly go about it. Like we said, the Hillary Clinton without the killer instincts.
And
the worst of both worlds.
I think you said something like this today, Will. I do think Sanders has handled it pretty perfectly because, a lot of people would have wanted him to, I'm sure, hit back harder.
Pose, be lying.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's a universe where maybe that would be more satisfying. But he basically has just looked above it. During the debate, I'm sure some people saw them squabbling on stage and went, "Oh, I wish they'd, just make up and get back to work." But he really hasn't tried to hit her that hard. Doesn't really need to. He's way ahead of her, and he hasn't said anything, like she's being hysterical or something, to a reporter, allowing them to fillet him and say, this proves her initial contention. And today. One of my former colleagues at TPM apparently shouted out, "Are you a liar?" as he walked by, and he just gave them the fucking hairy eyeball and kept moving. And to someone else, he said, "We talked about the weather." When they asked, what was that about?
When they go low, we go high.
He's doing it more than fucking Camp Hillary or Warren or Biden ever have done. He seems to actually not be bothered. So
here's another huge tell about why Warren and her campaign is full of shit on this particular issue. No one can really know what exactly was said in that meeting because only two people really know. It's unfalsifiable, and it's just like it's one person's word against the other, and it's just a certain level a matter of like who you trust more or who you're rooting for. Joe Biden has said publicly the very thing that supposedly
a week before
Sanders
this
was said a week ago. About I don't have the I don't have the baggage of having to run as a woman in this election, which is why I'm a better bet in a general election. Has Elizabeth Warren, her people, attacked Joe Biden over that?
Right.
Well, that's
have they made an issue of that?
The real issue here, I think, who knows? I can't tell what people think about anything, but it seems as though this has not gone for Warren. At best, a fucking push. It might have hurt her. I don't think it hurt Bernie. The real problem, though, the real bad thing about this is that it came right as Bernie was trying to do the home stretch turn towards attacking Biden on his fucking record. And, of course, now no one wants to talk about Social Security or the war in Iraq or fucking a bankruptcy bill or anything like that. And that all helps Biden.
He did get it through, though, in the first bit of the debate, which is when most people are watching in the foreign policy thing. He did land a big blow on Biden over Iraq.
I just worry that people are over Iraq and they don't care as much anymore.
Possibly.
I
Social
feel
Security
like Social Security
would be the
is the thing
easiest.
that would actually work.
Social Security and trade deals, I think, are a more for the people who are going to decide this primary and election. I think that it's a sin. It's awful, but. I think that's probably a more potent pick.
Yeah.
Overall, I'm not too worried about any of this. Like, I think for non-sicko, media poisoned, lib brain people who look at that, even and especially women voters who looked at that really worked exchange where they just like, so why are you a liar? After he flatly denied it. I think it's clear what's going on. And I don't think it's gonna fucking land. And quite frankly, not Warren or her people, but the way that, media people in the past days have explicitly made this into a Me Too issue is nauseating.
Yeah.
And I think most people see that. Like, okay, I'll call her Julia Raffi, or whatever, Julia Raffi, whatever the fuck her name is, literally said, isn't the lesson from Me Too that you shouldn't call women liars?
Yes, that was the lesson. Yeah.
I mean, like, there it is.
Yeah.
If that's the lesson. Is it like women never lie, or that political campaign, like, or just, a competition in a political campaign is the same as covering up or lying about a sexual assault,
Yep.
or not believing women about something like sexual assault.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure that gains purchase with, like I said, the most brain poisoned people that we see and deal with online every day. But I really, really doubt that any normal person is going to fucking go for that.
And speaking of conflating things, also, what you can expect and what you got out of it was people who are assigned to the Warren campaign, because journalists, whatever they say, most of them, of course, they, whether they mean to or not, grow fond and eventually sort of start to defend the campaigns that they're covering. And there's a bunch of Warren campaign people or journalists covering her campaign that have said this is why they're so mad, is that Bernie gets to go at her, through Susan Sarandon, and they don't get to fight back. And the one guy said, quote tweeted the Queen, Susan, and said, this is the kind of stuff that they've been holding back until now. And Bernie's been sicking Susan Sarandon. It's like, is Susan Sarandon like even a part of his campaign? Like, no, that's just like a celebrity.
I mean, I think
who
she's done events for the campaign.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
She's not part of their like comm shop or like an official surrogate.
So just equating like Sanders is having, just like doing a barrage against Liz every day, and they've been, tight-lipped until now. Equating that, and then what Susan Sarandon was actually having a go at Warren about in that one instance was that she voted for Trump's military budget. That is now equated. Criticism of policy, criticism of a record, criticism period is now equated with creating a, as you say, unfalsifiable, gossipy moment that turns into a "when did you stop beating your wife" question. These are now the same thing. So it's a double standard that Bernie gets to criticize her on voting for Trump's war monies, and she doesn't get to create some kind of bizarre black box accusation against him, as
and
if
it's
that's
funny
a reasonable contention.
The Liz lads now, as her campaign is, like I said, trying to weasel out of this at the same time that they're trying to get it out there, are basically saying to people like us or people who are pissed off about it, like, hey, politics ain't softball. This is a tough
Stop
game or whatever.
whining.
It's just like, well, guess what, asshole? That's what we've been saying to you for fucking months
Right.
now. Every time you fucking whined and complained about, the fact that, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders' political record and, lifetime of opinions actually do make for a certain contrast that doesn't necessarily redound to your benefit. They all whine and bitch and complain about that, and they just say like, you should be nicer to the people whose votes that you're supposedly need or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, fuck off. I mean, and this proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that these people are unreachable and should not even be tried. Like, no one should attempt to fucking court them because they know at the end of the day what side they're on.
Yeah.
And it's not Sanders, and it's not our side.
Absolutely not.
The push for unity is that code for the left needs to stop asking for anything. Let's all just get and Warren, although she is of course more progressive than Biden, is essentially on that team. Now, if you're trying to defend Sanders at all, even though he didn't even fucking start it, you're not doing your unification duty, and that's what Biden people say as well.
The idea of two candidates who are both viable possibilities in a primary since it's been since like 1972 since we've had largely primaries determine the nominees since we got rid of the smoke-filled rooms. Never happened. This is not how it works because it doesn't make sense at a basic level. The idea that you're on the same team or that there's some coordination between you or that you need to stay like have a that's not a thing, and it never has been. They invented it when she decided to, after chickening out in 2016 and then waiting for the dust to settle and endorsing Hillary when it was a fait accompli, now running, knowing Bernie was going to run, these people decide to create a concept that has never existed in politics. The idea of both running against each other, but together. That's not a thing.
It certainly didn't exist when a lot of them, at least, were supporting Hillary in 2008 and made, honestly, this whole kerfuffle look like absolute child's play.